Alright, real quick, I'm just going to make sure that the stream is up on my stream manager. It looks like it is. For a second, let me make sure the audio is working too. Yep, and it is. Okay, cool. Hello everyone, it's Tabasa. I thought that since I'm a Catalyst main, I would like to show what I've learned playing over the past 2 years of Catalyst. I started in season 17, and if you want, these are my stats so I could show some sort of credibility as to playing Catalyst a lot. And so, first things first, I am just going to show my warm-up because I know a couple people have asked about my warm-up, but I also think that warming up is a very important thing. And then we'll get straight into, I have a list here, we'll get into doors, we'll get into spikes, we'll get into the wall, we'll get into perks, and then we'll close it out with some just mindset things as you're playing Catalyst. So first off, I'm just going to show you how I quickly do my warm-up. I usually grab 2 guns I'm very comfortable with. For me, that's a flatline and a volt. And I grab all the gold attachments and whatnot for it. And 2 of the main things that I've learned that are really good are just learning and practicing your hip fire, and then just the recoil pattern of whatever gun you're using. So for hip fire, I just literally go back and forth like this and just keep shooting the jump. And the reason why I do this is because eventually you can do things like this, where you add in a slide, or for instance, you can throw in a jump and then slide. So there's a bunch of reasons why I like to practice hip firing, is because from just the fundamental of hip firing, you can do a lot of things off of that. The second thing is just recoil control. That mainly being with whatever gun you're comfortable using. Personally, for me, I usually don't go any further than like 25 meters. For me, it's just not a place I fight as a Catalyst, because I mainly fight on buildings. But if you're comfortable going at a longer range, by all means, go ahead. So after the warm-up, let's get into doors. So first off, I'm going to grab a grenade real quick, because there's a couple things that I want to show. Let's grab that. And this will also have to do with the perks eventually too, because I'll get into that as well. So first thing about doors that I think is very important for a Catalyst to learn is something I like to call a door slide, or really it's just a fancy term for caddying a door while you're running. So usually we go up as Catalyst and we catalyze a door, or caddy a door like this, then we break it down. However, let's say that you're running from an enemy or an opponent and you're really trying to get cover. What you should learn how to do is do something like that, where you're running and you're already ready to caddy that door. Now, as you can see, I had to turn around a bit. I'm pretty sure there's a couple times, if you hit it at the right spot, you can just, yeah, you don't even have to turn around for that. And when it comes to doors that you have to swing open, usually I do turn around and make sure I close them, just because sometimes the velocity, you might accidentally hit the door, you'll get slowed, and then you kind of miss the door. And another thing that I like to stress as a Catalyst is make sure the doors are closed. I kid you not, if doors are not closed, I'm mad at my teammates. I've died way too many times because I thought that this spot was cover, and so I go in here, and let's say there's a door here, and a door's open that I've caddied, and a pathy just swings in and shoots me. So making sure that your doors are closed almost at all times, unless you're using them, is very important as Catalyst. So another thing that I've learned, especially over this new season, in season 25, is learning when to caddy your doors. Now, it might seem like, shouldn't I catalyze the door at all times? Well, if you're in a gunfight and you're up against like an Ash or a Ballistic or an Alter or whoever's in the meta right now, they're typically gonna actually end up at the door a lot faster than you think. And so when you hit this animation, they'll actually be able to open the door as you're hitting it, and then they'll get through. And so that becomes really annoying because your hands are in the air trying to caddy this door while the enemy's trying to shoot at you. So do keep in mind that when you go to caddy a door, that you can 100% get there before like an Ash can dash through it. Next thing, this is a big thing that I like to do. This is one of my favorite things as a Catalyst main, and that is to pre-fire my doors. So I'm going to quickly break this door down here and show as an example. So a lot of times I'll be sitting in a building, it doesn't really matter which building, and I'll have a door like this. And what will happen is there's an enemy that's trying to come over here and kick my door down. And let's say I don't have a caddy spike, for instance, so they're just going to keep kicking it. And so what happens is I will like to just kind of sit by my door. I'll hear them kick once maybe, and if I see them go for another kick again, I can break it down and instantly pre-fire them and kind of peek out and back in again. And let's see, where's another dummy? I don't know. This dummy's disappeared. Yeah, we'll do it with this door too. So another thing is they don't even have to be kicking down the door either, right? They could just be looking at your door like this, and then as soon as you see them turn around, boom, you want to strike and hit them in the back. And you want to punish them for not paying attention to you. Let's see, what else? Another thing that I like to do, and this is mainly with buildings that have about 3 doors or 4 doors, is you want to create a funnel for enemies. So let's say, for instance, that there's, let's just say it's this room, right? And there's no way to get up to the second floor. If I have these 2 doors caddied on the outside, and I know there's a team inside, and let's say they don't have an altar, for instance, or maybe they do have an altar and it's only a 2-door building. What I'm basically doing by caddying their doors, despite them being in the building, is I'm making it so their only points of exiting the building are this window, this door. And so I can, hold an angle if I wanted to, kind of right here, just to see who's crossing, or maybe you want to get behind cover and play something like this. And so you want to think about, okay, just because I'm a catalyst doesn't necessarily mean I always have to play inside the building. I can also play around it as well. And so with that out of the way, I believe that completes the doors. So now I'm going to get into the spikes. So a long time ago, I was originally thinking, okay, how do I want to place the spikes? And this is actually a perfect door-window combo for this idea. So on doors that don't have windows, like this one, for example, I like to place my spikes like this, because if I have it caddied, let's say I have a caddy and a spike on it, the spikes are at least going to affect the enemy out here. Now, unfortunately, they don't do damage anymore, which sucks, but it at least provides some type of slow. And let's say, again, let's say the enemy's being real ballsy and they're trying to come at your caddy door and knock it down. Well, you can break it down on them, shoot them. The spike will activate, doing damage and slowing them. You're going to have a lot easier time killing someone on this door. Now, if it's a door like this, where there's a window next to it, and this really works for any window too, I usually place them like this, just because it covers the 2 different entrances. And for places where it's just windows, I place it off to the side. The reason why I place it off to the side, obviously, I don't want people, if they're on here, I don't want them to have an easy shooting point if it were right here to knock my trap out. I want them to get this angle, to which, if I'm playing as Catalyst, I'm going to be holding this angle, because if I know they're going to be shooting my ball to try and get in, I can hold this angle and punish them for shooting the ball and not me. Next thing to practice, I would say, is your long-range throws. And the reason why practicing your long-range throws, I don't know if it does it on any of these doorways. I'll have to see. Let me see if I can, yeah. Nope, never mind. I'm terrible. Nope. So, I don't know if I can show it on any of these doors here by the way that it's... Actually, I might be able to throw it off this light. Let me see. No. Okay. So, usually in Apex, for some reason, a lot of the doors have these trims that stick out of the wall, and the trim on top counts as geometry. And so what will happen is, instead of your spike hitting this top, this light, for instance, and dropping down like you saw before, what will happen is it'll get stuck on the trim, and it'll like caddy up here like this, and it'll be completely wasted. So I would practice long range throws, that way you don't end up accidentally throwing it onto that ledge. Let's see. Next, yes, we have recon. So Catalyst is, funnily enough, one of the best control legends to be recon, because it's not like they can shoot out it like a caustic trap or a Watson fence, and you might be in a gunfight and you might not hear it or something. So Catalyst, what you can do is, let's say you're trying to play, let's say you're trying to play this cover right, and you're facing a team this way. You might want to consider placing a spike back here or back here if this is what you have for cover. Because if you're shooting this enemy, you're not going to be throwing spikes that way because there's really no point to you. Rather just shoot them. Instead, you want to have these spikes back here in case there's maybe a third party. You might be able to hear your spike go off. Not only that, but if it's a choke point that a team has to go through, like one of those big doors on Storm Point, you can throw a spike on that door and they'll either get ticked from it, and that'll let you know that there's an enemy there, or they'll shoot it out and you'll either hear the shots or you can see on your minimap if a spike is gone. So using your Catalyst spikes as recon is totally a viable thing that you can do if you're not playing a building at the moment. And I think a lot of people tend not to think of Catalyst as a recon legend. Finally is learning how to use your Catalyst spikes as a helpful tool when in battle if you're not in a building. So for instance, I do have a bunch of TikToks listed in the description. I do have a TikTok that perfectly like shows the example of how I was able to take control of my cover despite us not being in a building with my spikes. So those links will all be in the description. But let's say I'm playing this box on it with an enemy. I might want to throw a Catalyst spike like this, and then maybe one on the side wall while I'm trying to rotate around to try and see where this person's going. Because what's going to happen is, if I place a spike here, this enemy is not going to be wanting to cross this way. They might be inclined to climb, but you might already think, okay, they're probably the only place that they can shoot me from if I'm on this side and like this is if they climb up. And so you might already be in that position. If not, and you're swinging around like this, just place another spike down, because then you've limited their playable space to just this spot right here, which allows you to have more control of your area, especially in one-on-one gunfights. All right, next is the wall. I might have to get a couple recharges up here, but there are a couple ways that I like to fight on my wall, and a couple of ways that I calm things. So for instance, one of the biggest things that I like to do is I like to split the team that I'm fighting in half. So let's say, for instance, there's this guy here, this guy here, and we'll say there's a Vantage off in the distance sniping, or there's an Octane screwing around with another team. If I'm with my team, what I usually call out is I'm splitting them. And so what that means is I'm throwing a wall down here and I'm pushing the guy that's solo, because there's two guys on that side and there's one guy on this side. So if I'm with my team, I can at least isolate, at least for myself, a 1v1. If my teammates are with me, then it makes it, a 2v1, a 3v1. Now, another thing that I like to prioritize is wall surfing, and unfortunately I need to get an ult again. Where's those eco caches? There we go. Give me 5 extra seconds of that.
I wonder what she would have made of that. Nothing says hero incoming.
So you can use it to split. Next, I'm going to talk about wall surfing. And this is mainly if you're pushing a team. Like if you already knocked a guy and you're trying to push up and get closer to them so you can, capitalize on that knock. I like to wall surf, where if that's my enemy, I throw up my wall. I'm walking on this side for a little bit, and then I'm going on this side, and then maybe I peek back on this side, and then this side again. So really, wall surfing is just keeping close to your wall and changing directions. Because let's say there's a guy standing up here. He's going to have a whole lot harder time going from this side to this side of the wall and trying to keep track of you and your teammates as you're approaching, versus just being on one side, being basically in a straight line. So that's another thing. And then finally is, how would I fight on a wall? So let's say I have my enemies here. I'm going to throw up a wall, and let's say there's 2 enemies here on this side. If I'm not, I usually like to listen for these footsteps, because when I hear that they're close, what I will do is just randomly, at some point in the wall, I'll stop for a second, and then I'll just peek out, get a couple of shots, go back in, move somewhere else, peek in. Now, obviously, you're not going to have these scans, but you can listen for the footsteps and how close they are, or you can kind of crouch through. And it's key not to do it a whole lot. You probably only want to do it once or twice when your wall is up, And that's because you don't want your enemies to track you through your wall when you're going back into it, since you can still shoot through that wall. So just making sure to kind of be like a very annoying stab in their back when you're throwing up that wall and using it is very crucial. Finally, there are a couple cancel animations for the wall that are very niche, in my opinion. I don't use these a whole lot, and you can use them on the door too. And that is when you are wall jumping. So as you can see, I didn't really do the hand animation. It kind of just stopped itself. Let me see if I can more properly do it here. No, I didn't do it properly. Gosh darn it. Let me see. Usually it has to be a sideways slide. Yeah, like that. So doing something like that is possible, and I'll see if I can do it with the wall real quick. But if you climb, yeah, there we go. So yeah, you can cancel the animation because the throwing up your hands is quite long. I think it's like 3 seconds or something like that. And you might need your gun out instantly. So making sure that you like grab onto a ledge or wall bounce can help cancel that animation and get your gun out faster so you can shoot those enemies. Let's see. Finally, let's get into perks. So for perks, I usually go with this side personally. I just like having the long-lasting ult and a longer ult in general. It can be very helpful with rotations and whatnot. And if you're trying to provide a whole lot of cover, maybe inside a building, you throw a wall up and you need to like stay hidden behind like a box to pop a bat or something. I usually like having that extra couple of seconds to pop a heal off or maybe even a res. And then you can use these other two. I have nothing against these. I miss having 3 spikes on Catalyst. These might be more ranked in which you want to choose these, but what I will say is if we go back to what we discussed earlier with the Ferro, like the ferrofluid doors, is that you can pre-fire those, right? You don't, if someone's sitting on your door, you just break them down. Whereas if you have this perk, you're never going to have that state of a door because you'll just get that door back.
Go over here.
So personally for me, I like to choose the ult ones, but again, it is your preference depending on what you're playing and how you're playing. And finally, I'm going to get into kind of the mindset that I have when playing Catalyst, as well as some building setups. So as a Catalyst, you're getting into the ring is like #1 priority. And you need to make sure that you're scanning beacons, especially in ranked. Like this is mainly for ranked now. If I'm playing Catalyst in ranked, I'm looking at where's the final ring, what buildings are there available, and which one of them is the best building to hold. Because there are some buildings that just suck in general. And I'm not going to go in and show because I'm doing this off of a stream, but most buildings, you know, if they have 2 doors, they tend to be really great. If you can think about Storm Point, the pyramids, those are probably one of the best Catalyst buildings you can hold, in my opinion. Or the one that's in Cascades that has 2 floors. There's like a bottom floor and it has stairs going up to the 2nd floor. That's another good one. And then any other building that has 2 doors is genuinely really good because you can obviously, you know, caddy one door, caddy another door, throw some spikes on it and call it a day. Now, if there's 3 or more doors, that is where I start to think about, okay, where's the most likely door that a person's going to want to use, / where am I kind of playing off of, right? Because, for instance, this building, let's say there's a door here, right? Just for instance, let's say there's a door. And I have a door here, door there, and a 3rd door there. What I would personally do is I would caddy up these top 2 doors because it allows me to keep control of this entire floor without a problem. Now, let's say I caddied this 3rd door, right? If I caddy this 3rd door, and that means that if I'm playing down here, there's going to be someone on like high ground, if you will, since they're on the floor above me. They're going to be on high ground, and they're going to have either this door or this door to shoot me. And so I'm kind of open to 2 different possible angles depending on which door I didn't caddy up. Whereas if I'm up here, I have this door and this door. I can look at this one door right here, and they can't, you know, keep themselves guessing. Because if an altar port comes through on this side and an ash dashes through on this door, I'm kind of screwed and I have 2 different angles to look at. Whereas if they're playing down there because I have my caddy stuff up here, then they're going to have to funnel through that door. And another thing is, you know, you could throw a spike on your third door or your fourth door, and if you're rocking 3 spikes, you can throw even a caddy spike on a 5th door. Another thing is in close tight buildings, sometimes I'll throw a catalyst spike on stairs like this, just so it covers literally the entire stairs and makes it hard for enemies to want to just easily push up. And this will force them to climb, in which you can shoot them as they're climbing. Or if they are going to shoot, then you know that they're about to come up, or you know kind of roughly where they are, because they could be there or they can be, you know, in this general vicinity shooting it. So that's a little bit on the placement as well as how you want to be thinking about buildings. Now let's see here. All right. And finally, the way I would describe my playstyle personally is kind of like a snapping turtle, because a lot of people say, oh, Control Legends, you know, they're playing like a turtle. They hold the building and they just kind of hunker down. Well, with Catalyst, because you can do this whole pre-fire thing with the doors like this, and you can just, it allows for Catalyst to have some sort of like counter-offensive ability, where if there is an enemy sitting on this door, or I have a teammate that is next to me, we can both swing out on this caddy door, kill a guy, come back in. I can caddy this door, and we can, you know, heal up a little bit, and then we've made this, you know, opportunity for 2v1, making it now a 3v2 for our entire team. And I used to do this a whole ton with one of my teammates when he played Seer. He played Seer when you get scanned and you can't use your Q because you get silenced. And so what would happen is we would kind of sit by a particular door, wait for someone to come by. He would Seer Q them, and we'd break the door down and go kill them. Because no matter who they are, Wraith, Horizon, whatever, they're not going to get away because they don't have their Qs anymore as they're silenced. Obviously, Seer's no longer super meta, but he might come back with these changes depending on what these next patch notes are going to be. All right, I think that covers it up for about all the Catalyst tech that I know so far. If there's any more that I can think of, I'll let you guys know. Once again, if you guys want to go ahead and check those TikToks in the description, those are videos that I've looked through on my own TikTok and have thought that they are implementations of some of the stuff that I've been talking about in this video. So if you kind of want to see some live ranked games or pub games, I think most of them are from when I was Pred in Season 17. You can go ahead and look at those videos and leave a like, leave a comment, tell me what you guys think about this video, and make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.